is an increase in the general price level of an economy, and we can calculate the inflation rate as a percentage change in a price index, which could be the consumer price index, i.e. the CPI or the GDP deflator. Since the most common measure of the general price level is the CPI, it will be using this CPI day values to calculate the inflation. Now, in this case, the inflation rate for the current period would be the CPI value for the current period minus CPI value for the previous period divided by CPI value of the previous period. Now, this will measure the percentage change in the price level from the previous period to the current period. Now, let's look at an example in which we'll be calculating the annual inflation rate. Now, we won't be able to calculate it for the first year in this case, which is 2020, because to calculate the inflation rate for any year, you need ending CPI value and the beginning CPI value, which is not possible for the first year. So we move on to 2021, and the inflation rate for 2021 would be the CPI value for 2021, which is 115, minus the CPI value of the previous year, i.e. 2020, which is 100, divided by the CPI value of the previous year, which is 2020. So in that case, the value is 100. So when we multiply this with 100 as well to get it as a percentage, the inflation rate for 2021 would be 15%. And this would mean that on average, the CPI basket would cost 15% more in 2021 as compared to 2020. Similarly, we can calculate the inflation rate for 2022, which would be the CPI value for 2022, which is 126, minus the CPI value of the previous year, which in this case is 2021. So the value is 115, divided by again the CPI value of the previous year, i.e. 2021, which is 150. And this gives us an inflation rate of 9.57%. This means that on average, the CPI basket costs 9.57% more in 2022 as compared to 2021. Now, instead of the CPI, we could have also calculated the inflation rate using GDP deflator values, in which case the inflation rate for the current period would be the GDP deflator for the current period minus the GDP deflator of the previous period divided by the GDP deflator of the previous period. And the GDP deflator for any period can be calculated as a nominal GDP for that period divided by real GDP for that.